Oh, I'm not sure exactly. That's a good question. My dad might know better. Streaming it and recording, hopefully, yeah.
Did the one last night get done?
I think there's problems with it.
What?
There's problems with it.
Wait, do we have any recording of it last night?
I think so.
Okay, good. That was a really good.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Plans. I think you're only.
Stop microphone. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Bueno. It's one. The one I sent you just now. 17 No, I sent it to you. I'll email it to you, I guess. Alright, here you go. It's just streaming already, I don't know why, but these two microphones work.
Are they on?
There it is. Thank you.
Produces as you need them. Did you need any help with the video? Or you pretty much know the system in your space at this point? All right.
Nathan was able to download my video.
I got a video here.
Yay, that's it.
I haven't practiced playing it, but
Okay.
the other one works, so I think it
Okay.
should be okay.
Awesome, thank you.
So, you don't need to. This is the live stream.
Start over here.
I'm going to leave one of these. I'm going to go in this corner and check these out.
Listen to the bonfire.
I did a second dog. Should that work? I think so.
Compliments of Russell.
Yeah, no. Good job. I know.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2 3. 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Testing 1 2 3. Wait. I'm retarded. I'm 4 minutes behind.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2. 1 2 3. Check 1 2 3.
Testing 1 2 3.
Can you send me a link and I'll put it on there?
Got to put it on. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
In the first century of our movement, that hope was carried on weary shoulders. We set out with a sense of desperate urgency.
Testing, testing,
Yet
1,
then
2,
this
3.
message was a rescue mission for the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. It was built on the peace of salvation in Christ and the healing rest of the Sabbath. But what truly drove this movement into the world's hardest places was the Advent conviction, the belief that Jesus is coming soon. We couldn't stand by while people lived in fear or physical pain. We were a people of hope, determined to bring God's love to the ends of the earth, first by foot and eventually by air. We crossed seas, mountains, and jungles. As we gathered the tools to access new regions, the frontline work advanced. We believed that hard places weren't off limits just because they were hard. Instead, they were the priority. The physical toll was staggering. Before the roar of an engine was ever heard in the remote bush, there was only the sound of heavy breathing and the rhythmic thud of boots on mud. In the highlands of Papua New Guinea or the jungles of South America, the long walk was the only way to access these incredibly remote places. In some regions, it took days of grueling trekking just to reach the next village. Workers and locals alike suffered from treatable diseases, malaria, infected wounds, complicated births, simply because help couldn't get there in time. Supplies were a luxury. A clean bandage or a fresh bottle of medicine was sometimes weeks away by mule or canoe. The people of hope were fighting a war against distance, and for a long time, distance was winning. On June 16, 1963, right here at the Anglin Airport in California, a crowd gathered for a moment that would redefine Adventist missions. It was the dedication of one of the first Seventh-day Adventist mission airplanes, a rugged, high-wing Helio Courier. They named it the Fernando Stall. The name was a bridge to our past. Anna and Fernando Stall had spent decades on muleback and on foot, reaching the indigenous people of the Andes and Lake Titicaca. By naming the plane after the Stalls, the church was declaring that the pioneer spirit hadn't changed, only the speed of delivery. The Helio Courier was specifically selected to conquer the extremes of South America. It was a mechanical marvel that could take off and land in less than 500 feet, operating out of tiny, hand-cleared strips in the jungle. When it arrived in the Amazon basin, the Fernando Stall transformed everything. What used to be a trek of many days became a 2-hour flight. It brought doctors to the sick and the gospel to the isolated. This program in Peru became the first of our continuous 3, a mission that has never stopped flying from that day to this. While the Fernando Stall was conquering the Andes, a similar miracle was unfolding in the South Pacific. In Papua New Guinea, the legendary Len Barnard had also spent years hacking through the jungle. He knew the exhaustion of the foot slog better than anyone. He knew that in the ragged peaks of the PNG highlands, the people lived in a world of animism and revenge killings. Deep in the jungle, children grew up in a world of intense spiritual isolation and genuine fear. In 1964, with the arrival of a Cessna 180 named the Andrew Stewart, that wall of isolation began to crumble. As the work grew, so did the need for a fleet that could handle the world's most dangerous airstrips. A lineage of service began, marked by the registration codes on the tails of aircraft, a sequence that became the DNA of the Papua New Guinea mission. First came Sierra Delta Alpha, SDA, the literal alpha of the fleet for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It was followed by Sierra Delta Bravo, each plane pushing further into the mountains and hidden valleys of the interior. The aircraft grew faster, larger, and more sophisticated, but perhaps the most beloved of them all was Papa 2 Sierra Delta Charlie. Charlie is a 206, a workhorse with a more powerful engine and large cargo doors. For decades, the roar of Charlie's engine was the echo of an answered prayer. Charlie pioneered the Flying Doctor program, providing basic healthcare and education in regions where no doctor had ever been. It also carried church workers, Bibles, and building materials. To the people of the Highlands, Charlie was more than just a machine. It was Biklabalus, a giant bird from heaven. Thousands of lives were saved and countless more eternal destinies were changed because Charlie turned a multi-day slog through the mud into a flight of mere minutes. The mission didn't stop there. It grew to the Solomon Islands, ironically the birthplace of missions in the South Pacific countries. Here, the challenge shifted from mountain peaks to vast stretches of open, unpredictable wild ocean. To navigate these scattered volcanic islands, the church introduced a different kind of bird, the J.L. Tucker, a twin-engine Piper Aztec. Named after the beloved Quiet Hour founder, the J.L. Tucker provided the safety and redundancy essential for long overwater flights. It could hop between islands with ease. It was a lifeline in the truest sense, a fire-breathing bridge of aerospace engineering spanning the Pacific, proving that no island was too remote for the hope of the Second Advent. From these early strongholds, the mission radiated outward to nearly every corner of the globe. Our pilots became the masters of adaptation. In the Arctic North, we swapped wheels for skis to reach the remote interior where frozen tundra is the only road. In Canada and Korea, we utilized floats to land on water where no runway would ever be built. In Asia and across various African nations, aviation became the only way to move supplies during times of famine, pandemic, and civil unrest. We flew over the rugged Sierras of Mexico, the dense jungles of Central America, and the deep fjords of Norway. Our pilots have been the hands and feet of Jesus, serving as a lifeline to those whom the rest of the world has forgotten. But as we celebrate these millions of miles, we must pause. We must look at the tail numbers and the flight logs and realize that it has come at a cost. Every miracle flight has been underwritten by a legacy of sacrifice. To fly for the gospel is to step into a realm where the risks are as real as the rewards. To honor this truth, we have established a new Mission Aviation Museum. This is a place to remember that there is a profound cost to the Great Commission. Inside these halls, the stories of our pioneers are told through the things they left behind. You will soon see the artifacts of Janelle Older. In 2023, Janelle, a dedicated missionary nurse in the Philippines, boarded a helicopter, the Yellow Bee, to transport a patient in desperate need of a hospital. That flight never returns. Her memory remains a silent, powerful reminder that the mission field is a place of absolute surrender. Alongside her, we remember the Roberts family. We remember Bob Roberts, who gave his life in a crash in Indonesia, and his son Gary Roberts, who went to take up his father's mantle. Gary was a master of the bush turnaround. He was known for emptying the airplane, ripping out every unnecessary seat to make room for one more bag of rice, one more patient, or one more gallon of fuel. He flew with legendary skill and a servant's heart until an inoperable brain tumor grounded him in 2024. His tools sit quiet in our display cases now, wrenches and pliers that maintain the engines of hope, testifying to a man who literally wore himself out so that others might live. Alongside these heroes are names like Ken Smith, Bob Norton, Laurie Shields, Les Anderson, Harry Pittman, and Jim Arabito. These heroes stand as a testament to the cost of service. Some, like Janelle, remain missing, but a day is coming when the reunion will be sweet enough. 60 years ago, geography made aviation essential. Today, the world has changed, but the barriers haven't disappeared. They've evolved. Nearly 3 billion people still live in regions so isolated that many never hear the gospel. The mountains and jungles are still there, joined now by political instability and civil unrest. In many ways, the places we serve are more remote today than they were decades ago. Air support is no longer just an advantage, it is often the only way in and the only way out. Look closely at our three angels logo. It is not merely a theological symbol for a letterhead. In Revelation, those angels are seen flying in the midst of heaven, carrying the everlasting gospel to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people. This museum reminds us of the cost. The hangar reminds us of the task. And the Word of God reminds us of the promises found in Matthew 28. We honor Janelle Older by refusing to let her mission disappear with her. We honor Gary Roberts by picking up the tools he laid down. We honor Len Barnard by ensuring that the long walk is finally over for every tribe and tongue and people. We are the people of hope. Our history is written in the clouds, and our future is far beyond the sky. The cockpit is open. The engines are turning. And today, by God's grace, that hope is taking off once again. I just want to spend about 15 seconds and pause. A number of you in this room were not on the screen, but have also paid the ultimate price. Our museum is in its infancy, but as we get your stories and exhibits out, we want the world to realize not only the cost, but also the privilege of service. I've asked John to share briefly about Ultimate Mission. He is currently working in several countries in Asia, India, and some other countries. He's going to share briefly. After John shares, I'm going to introduce briefly the stations, and then we're going to be able to divide and meet these people interactively. Then we'll come back at 3:30 for the two final presentations. Thank you, John.
Do I need both of these?
Once for the recording, once for the live stream. Thank you so much.
Can you guys hear me okay? So, wow, that was pretty emotional for me. I don't know about you guys. I have not seen any of that stuff before. So I would just like to say, I mean, that's just so well done. That video was amazing. And I know this is not on the agenda either, but, and maybe it's been said already, it'll probably be said again, but I just would like to acknowledge the vision and the work of this man in taking on this whole project, and just praise God for the sacrifices that he's made as well. So Ultimate Mission has not a whole lot to do with aviation, but how many of you were at church this morning? A number of you? Okay, so you know a little bit about what we do. So we hire women who are typically the wives of pastors and gospel workers. We train them, we give them health education, we equip them, we provide them with a stethoscope, a blood pressure cuff, a tape measure, and a scale. And that's all they need. And we also provide them, that's not all they need. In the year 2026, they also need a smartphone. So we provide them with a smartphone too, and software that we use that they can report to us, we can evaluate them, and then we send them out in the community. So they go house to house and do health teaching in the homes. And we're in 6 countries now, we have over 300 workers. That's kind of the basic model. And it opens up doors that otherwise would not be open. So you talk about the opening wedge of the gospel. So if you're in a Hindu or a Muslim area, as a Christian, you're not going to be let in the door. You probably won't be spoken to out in the yard either. But you have that stethoscope around your neck, and that changes everything. So that's the basis of our model. It's not something that we came up with. It was a God thing. We set out to do some other things, and that's where we ended up. Let me just tell you briefly, am I supposed to tell a story? Is that what I'm supposed to do? 30-second story. Okay, well, I'll tell you something else that's exciting to me. We're doing a research project. How many of you think a research project is exciting? Not too many. Okay. So we are looking at 5 different villages in Ethiopia. We've hired nurses to go out and do measurements. So we're looking at anemia, malnutrition, and diarrhea over a period of 1 year. So we're taking measurements at the beginning, 6 months, and 1 year. And we know our system works, but we are wanting to prove that. So that's what we're doing now. We've gotten our 6-month data. It's very promising. We actually have a team in Ethiopia right now that is collecting the 1-year data, and that will be something that we're going to publish in a medical journal, and hopefully that will open some doors for us as well. So thank you for having me. If you have questions or want to talk more, I'll be in the back briefly.
Thank you so much, John. Just give me about 10 seconds here. Okay, from now until about 3:30, we're going to give you the chance to mingle and walk around the building. It's a bit humble right now, but on the display case in the back left-hand corner are some very special artifacts. This is the beginning of a bunch more that's coming. Take your time and have a look. The dagger knife in there is designed for people, and it has been used. And the reason we have it is because the people in that village want us to know what difference the gospel made for them, and they want it to make a difference for us too. As you go down the case, you'll see some stuff for Janelle, for Bob, for the Arabitos. There are other families that have stories that I'm still collecting artifacts from. In the back left-hand corner by the flags is Charlie. All of those of you that were involved in rebuilding Charlie, in flying Charlie, in working with Charlie in Papua New Guinea. We have several visitors who flew here from Australia to talk to us about Charlie this afternoon. They are here and ready to meet you at the back. In the back middle scope of Adventist Aviation, we have several families here that have been serving around the world. We've got the Marshes here from PUC that went over to Africa. We have the is Stan's family, the Sorenbergers, are they here? Yes, we have you guys served in Indonesia, right? I think. Where did Stan's go work? 5 years in Peru, another in Indonesia. So if I haven't even asked her yet, but this is the daughter-in-law. So that's that's the table back here with, if you have an interest or a background or you have served in various countries, the scope of Adventist aviation, there's a map on the wall. There are some dots up there, but I'm missing most of them. If you know a dot that I'm missing, please guide us to put dots on the map of where we've had aviation bases serving. Over here in the right towards the simulator is the PUC specific stuff. I see Art Westphal here today. The Westphals and the Stalls were very good friends, pioneers. Come and talk to them over here in the PUC corner. Through the innovation room, you see a bit of a dilapidated aircraft right now, the JL Tucker. We have three pilots, Joe McRoberts, David McRoberts' brother, and Jan, David's wife. All three of those have been pilot in command of that aircraft in the South Pacific, serving several countries, but based in the Solomon Islands. Go and talk to them there. We have the Quiet Hour Ministry here. They've got a great booth. The Quiet Hour, we're responsible for helping us launch about 54, 56 aircraft. They're here today. And we also have the Office of Adventist Mission. Clint and Gina Wallin are here from the General Conference Office of World Mission. And the guy at the back with the brown jacket and the dark blue shirt, navy blue with less hair than some of us, is Judd from Angel One. And I think did I miss anybody else? Go ahead and disperse. If you have been a leader or a server or involved in one of these ministries or places, please go to those locations to explain to the visitors what happened in that place. And we'll come back here at 3:30 for two presentations. The Quiet Hour has a 15-minute film, and then Colin Dunn from Papua New Guinea is going to talk about Charlie, the special mission airplane that we've just fully refurbished to be based here at PUC. So please enjoy each other's company. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We'll see you back here at 3:30.
Good movie.
Don't look too close. Are you guys willing to explain to us a bit about the jail trucker as why and ask questions and wonder? Yeah, come back to slides. Gonna make an announcement.
concerned about, so I'm sharing with you know, even more
What can I major in and then what can I minor in? But he can do that too. He's got that personality.
Okay, so I spent last year doing like a yeah.
Usually how it was.
Sorry.
Okay. It is 3:30. If we could all find our seats, please, so that will help our program to go smoothly. Thank you. We got a lost and found phone. If you missed the phone, then please. If you have lost a phone, we have one for you.
Thank you so much for coming back. I would like to welcome you back to your seats, and we're going to now start with the second part of our program. I'm going to invite Andrea Briggs from the White Hour. She's going to speak to the student and then share a film. Thank you so much for joining us today. We do have a telephone lost and found. Lost and found telephone.
Maybe one more, I'm so sorry.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Want this one back? Oh, both of them, okay.
I'm going to ask Andrea Briggs from the White Hour to come forward now, and then we'll be ready for the second part of our program.
Okay, so I use this or guys use this?
This is for the recording from the cameras, this is for the people here.
Okay.
Quiet, please.
Your attention, please.
Thank you. Yeah, we need it quiet for the quiet hour, right? Okay. Thank you so much for the invitation for Quiet Hour to present here. I'm Andrea Griggs. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer at Quiet Hour Ministries. And with me are Carlton Burt from our IT and Donor Services Department and Georgia Burt from our Evangelism Department. We kind of tease that Georgia is our oldest employee, but it's not really oldest in age. She's actually worked here longer than any of our other employees. More than half of our 89-year history, Georgia's been here. So ask her how many years she's been here. She started when JL was our president, so that's very exciting. When Nathan and Janelle came to Quiet Hour in December, I had no idea the scope of what this was going to turn out to be. This is really beautiful. It's exciting to be here. We've met so many of you and heard some of your stories, and it's just thrilling. For me personally, this is a homecoming. I was coming up to college here when I was 17, and then ended up staying 18 years. I worked in financial services and then in institutional research. And then I also worked for sponsoring the Dramatic Arts Society. But one of the favorite things I got to do here was take the private pilot ground school up at the Flight Center with Reinhard Jarsky. It was so much fun. And so I was just really thrilled. It feels really like coming home for me. And now it feels like a full circle moment when I can be back representing Quiet Hour Ministries and how they have been working in mission aviation. And I brought a short video that we're going to show you, and it tells a little bit about how Quiet Hour Ministries got into aviation. You may recognize some of the planes and people from the earlier video, but enjoy.
Countries. Part of our story involves more than 50 mission airplanes, dozens of aviation partners, and many brave pilots, missionaries, and medical professionals, all because of Jesus. When Pastor J.L. Tucker began the Quiet Hour radio program in 1937, he wanted to create a ministry that brought people to Jesus. He wanted to inspire his audience to spend time in personal devotion and Bible study. And most importantly, he wanted to create a soul-winning agency, reaching people who haven't heard the amazing gospel message. Pastor J.L. urged everyone to take part in reaching the world for Christ, and listeners responded with enthusiasm. They asked him and his son, Pastor Laverne Tucker, to travel the world and assess evangelism needs. That trip became a turning point, launching Quiet Hour Ministries into a global outreach supporting the Seventh-day Adventist Church and sharing the message of Jesus to every corner of the earth. One of the many amazing missionaries J.L. met during his travels was Pastor Leonard Barnhart, along with his wife Mavis and daughter Kay. Pastor Barnhart was key to establishing Adventist aviation and piloting the first Adventist-owned mission aircraft, a Cessna 180 named Andrew Stewart. He and his family were the first Adventist missionaries in Papua New Guinea, who organized its first mission in 1953 and launched Adventist Aviation Services in 1964. Papua New Guinea is a remote mountainous region with rugged terrain. In the 1950s and 60s, the people were still completely unreached. The villages were small and primitive, with no vehicles, no communication, no power or modern technology. There was a warrior culture with cannibalism and witch doctors and powerful chiefs. Travel was difficult with no roads, deep mud, and rickety bridges. Pastor Barnhart developed his ministry utilizing Jesus' method of meeting people where they are, building relationships, meeting their needs, then sharing the news of salvation. Using an airplane allowed the work to expand much farther and faster. J.L. Tucker was deeply moved by the evangelism work in Papua New Guinea. Sharing these stories with his radio audience and Echoes readers, he highlighted the urgent need for mission airplanes. In 1964, Quiet Hour Ministries took its first step into Adventist aviation by helping with funding for Pastor Barnhart to keep the Andrew Stewart plane in service. One amazing story from Pastor Barnard tells of how a government survey team discovered an unknown village in a very remote region called Net. This area is over a 10,000-foot high mountain range at the head of the Wild April River. A young man in the village was amazed to hear of life outside of his area. It took an entire week to walk out of his village and reach the mission station. Can you imagine the bravery of this young man to leave everything and everyone he knew to travel with strangers into an unknown future? At the mission station, he told of the needs in his village for clothing, tools, and medical care. Pastor Barnard offered to take this young man up in the airplane so he could show the mission team where his village was located. And they kept him at the mission station for several days so he could rest. During this time, Pastor Barnard used a picture roll to share the wonderful gospel story. Here is what Pastor Barnard wrote about that flight. Finally, a suitable day dawned, and our faithful mission plane dauntlessly climbed the sky and headed for his mysterious village. Of course, I could only steer a compass course taken from our rather inaccurate map, but he kept pointing to the right, and sure enough, he led us to his lonely village on a little spur at the junction of two streams in a very rugged gorge. We circled several times and saw the villagers running out of their huts and waving to us, no doubt wondering what this noisy big bird was going to do. Finally, we swooped as low as we dare and threw out a bag of clothing. The people madly scrambled to reach it as it struck near the trees at the edge of the clearing. On top of the bag, the lad who was with us had placed some of his bird feathers from his head decorations so that the village would know the clothing was from him. After we returned and had landed at our mission station, this lad, who had suddenly jumped from the Stone Age era to the age of plane travel, was all excited to return to his people and set off immediately with a picture roll showing the wonderful face of Jesus, his newly found Lord. He also took a gramophone, an early kind of record player, with simple Bible stories in the local language here. Thus, in this age, the glorious gospel is being speeded into a very remote place with amazing speed. It took us only 65 minutes to complete this aerial survey. This lad is returning to his home and leading a party of our workers down to his people. Thus, another group of people who are completely devoid of clothing and without any medical aid at all will receive the hope of the gospel and medical help. These funds you have sent us will be a wonderful aid in answering this and many other similar calls. Once again, a big thank you to you and your many thoughtful sponsors of our mission program. Pastor Barnard shared that the need for the gospel is so great that they could really use a second airplane. So Pastor JL started fundraising through Quiet Hour Ministries, and in 1965 purchased another Cessna 180, the Malcolm Abbott, for mission service in Papua New Guinea. Next, Quiet Hour Ministries purchased pontoons for takeoffs and landings on water for a mission plane in Peru. Another Cessna 180 was needed in South America, and a lake amphibian plane was sent to South Korea. Then a Cessna 185 to Botswana, Africa. Praise God. While the radio ministry continued to expand, J.L. and Laverne Tucker, along with their wives, Ida and Alma, continued to travel internationally, preaching the gospel and seeking ways to support the Adventist Church. In 1969, they were presented with a need in the Solomon Islands for an airplane that could travel long distances and carry heavy mission supplies. a Piper twin Aztec was purchased, and the team in Solomon Islands named her the J.L. Tucker. This plane is very special to our Quiet Hour Ministries family. Colin Winch piloted the plane all around Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, New Hebrides, Tuvalu, Kiribati, Papua, Australia, and more. The need for mission airplanes continued to grow, and we know that God touched so many hearts to give to this work. In August 1976, there were 5 new mission airplanes that gathered at Martin Field near Walla Walla for a dedication ceremony. The Dale Talay plane was destined to Tanzania. The Lake amphibian plane called Wings of Health would be used by the flying nurse Dorothy Nelson in the Philippines. A new Cessna 206 was heading to Papua New Guinea. A Cessna 185 Skywagon was going to Sarawak, Borneo. And a Piper twin Aztec was heading to Hudson Bay, Manitoba, Canada. While it is fun to see all the different airplanes, we remember that they are an important tool for the bigger purpose of reaching the world with the gospel. The reports and stories from mission pilots show their commitment and dedication to serving as God has called them. A letter from pilot Bruce Johnston reminds us that in mission aviation, there aren't always long, straight, flat runways. He describes flying his plane provided by QHM, a Cessna 185 Skywagon, from the Sarawak mission in Malaysia. He writes, "Our airstrips, carved out of jungle, swamps, and hills, are short and rough. Some pilots would classify them marginal. My son, visiting an airstrip I had not yet tried, sent the following message. Dad, you can make it all right. Land over the schoolhouse, but watch out for the swamp on the left, which we will mark. There's a gully on the right, but you'll be okay if you follow the cow path. Be sure you stop before you get to the loghouse that has been built on the other end of the airstrip." Now, my son is good-natured and likes a joke, but this was no laughing matter. The airstrip was all that he described and more. A Malaysian Air Force helicopter pilot stood on the side of a hill that we used for an airstrip and couldn't believe it. He just shook his head, wondering how we did it. Why do we use airstrips like these? Because there are lives to be saved and souls to be won out there in the jungle. We need a dozen more airstrips. The Cessna 185 gives us that added margin of safety and makes it possible to medevac seriously ill or injured persons from the jungle and fly them to a waiting ambulance, notified in flight via radio and telephone. We can reach the international airport in less than 30 minutes, saving a torturous ordeal of many hours by boat and bus. I sit at the controls, running a quick pre-flight check, which includes prayer. A baby with bronchial pneumonia, seemingly breathing its last, and an old man with acute heart symptoms are my patients, depending on this flight as their lifeline to the future. All systems are go, but what about those rubber trees just beyond the end of the strip? And the tall durian tree beyond that seems to reach for the sky to brush any intruding skyflyer back into the jungle. Relax, I tell myself, for I have calculated the distance against the weight, and in spite of a moderate tailwind, there is margin to spare. 2 notches of flaps and full power. 9.5 Sierra shudders into life with a roar, and in split seconds lifts from the sod, pointing into the heavens, clearing those grasping limbs with feet to spare. Banking, the sun glistening on her wings, she heads toward home and life for an infant and ease from suffering for the old man. Thanks, God, and thanks too to all those whom He impressed to give through the quiet hour. Among the many stories of aviation, including medical services, supplies, equipment deliveries, missionary trips, and miracles, we want to honor and acknowledge the dedicated pilots. Invariably, what we hear is that the pilots willingly take on the risk because they believe so strongly in mission service. Their purpose is carried on in new generations of mission pilots who continue to share the gospel with every tribe and nation. Quiet Hour Ministries continues to carry the torch of evangelism in support of the Adventist World Church through international mission trips and hundreds of projects, speaking engagements, YouTube, and social media. Through donor support, we still fund many types of vehicles, including boats, vans, tuk-tuks, and motorcycles. Quiet Hour Ministries is thrilled to partner with the Pacific Union College Aviation Center in sharing reports of mission aviation around the world. We are currently compiling a database of photos and stories to contribute to the aviation history resources. We continue promoting Adventist mission and inspiring new generations to get involved through prayer, financial support, and hands-on mission service.
So we're currently working on gathering stories and pictures that we'll be sending in. What we have over at our exhibit right now are excerpts from the Ethos magazines. Some of the articles are talking about the great need for mission aviation. Some are actual stories from pilots and from people who've been served. So take a moment to look at them over there. And I've also provided a digital copy to have here in Visitor. So that's a nice searchable version. Please stop by our table before you go and pick up one of our little gift bags if you haven't already done so. We'll be around after the program if you'd like to talk or ask any questions. And on behalf of Quiet Hour Ministries, we are so blessed to have part in supporting mission aviation by you pilots and aviation workers. You're the real heroes of the story. And we thank you for allowing God to work through you and your skills and your talents as you serve to reach Christ. Thank you so much for your mission service. Thank you for listening.
I'd like to invite Colin to come forward. While he's coming forward, can I prevail upon any aircraft mechanic or pilot who has served or is serving overseas or here in the States? Please stand. We would acknowledge you. Any pilot, mission pilot, Jan, David, Joe, Brandy, Roger, Larry, Dennis, Kyle. Please acknowledge these folks. It's really important for the pilots to get the photographs, but the mechanics keep the planes flying. We need mechanics, engineers, we call them in South Pacific. Colin Dunn is one of those people. Colin Dunn is what we call an engineer. That means an aircraft maintenance technician. And he's also a pilot. He's flown, he told me, I think, more than 1,200 hours in Charlie, in Papua New Guinea. Thank you, Colin.
Talk about Big Brother. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're not ready to go for a snooze. If I wasn't here, I'd be horizontal. But it's been an experience coming to PUC. You'll figure out from my accent, which, by the way, I didn't have a week ago, but evidently I've got now, that I'm from Australia. And I'm representing, and hello, greetings from Adventist Aviation Services, Papua New Guinea. Mark Nee, our CEO, just wanted me to give a call out to you all and thank you for supporting Mission Aviation Worldwide, because it's one of the vehicles that's getting to the areas which are still unreached. Lick the ice cream. Okay. Okay, in Australia, we hear a lot on the news about making America great again. And I want to thank and congratulate PUC for contributing to that vision of making America great again. It's got to do with Charlie. On Charlie's birth certificate of C of A, which was, I think, the 8th of September 1976, it says that one of the parents of Charlie was the General Conference Corporation of Seventh-day Adventists. And indeed, they gave birth to an outstanding aircraft, which is still it is actually this year, its 50th year of service. So it's doing better than most of us. The other parent, not on the registration certificate, of course, was the Quiet Hour. But the Quiet Hour, having acquired it, actually deported it to the Antipodes, where it served for 49 years before coming home again now. Charlie, I was asked about why we use the name Charlie. Well, obviously Sierra Delta Charlie introduces the word Charlie. But in my youth, a Charlie was a lady, for those who go back with your slang. And so she is a Charlie. I looked up why do we call ships and aircraft she or her? And evidently it goes back to maritime culture. And in maritime culture, ships, aircraft and things like that were seen as nurturing, protective, sometimes capricious. This practice reflects an emotional and sometimes romanticised relationship between the pilots and machines. Now, Charlie definitely fits that category, not the capricious bit, but that warm connection between the pilots and the engineers and the machines. Of all the aircraft that AAS have operated, and I haven't got a list of them all, it'll bore you anyway, of all of them, Charlie, who was always the favourite machine. Charlie sat in the, she was stable, she was smooth, she was easy to handle, and she was predictable. Once you set the trim, that was it. There was no more fiddling around and adjusting. She just sat there and she went faster than anyone else around her. Charlie, on her retirement at 30 years of age on the 6th of December 2005 from AAS, Roger Millis, who was the CEO at the time, he wrote an article, so I'm now borrowing from Roger's writings. And this is what he wrote about this lady had been in his life. With a lump in my throat, I shed a tear as we said farewell to Charlie. After 30 years of faithful and tireless service to the church and the community in Papua New Guinea, Charlie was leaving us. Now, I'm getting ahead of myself here. We've just jumped 30 years, so I'll go back and do a little bit more of the history. The conception of Charlie, yes, the conception of Charlie, I've got to, okay, there's Charlie there. I'm looking at two screens here, and so I've got to go back there. That was Charlie when she arrived, okay. On the conception of Charlie, it came about because of a need. There were two pastor pilots, Pastor Russell Gibbs and Ray Newman, and they both had large swathes of jungle district to look after, but because of the crash of our previous 206, they had very little access to the aircraft. And so Russell and Ray wrote a letter to J.J. Aitkins, I think it is, and Laverne about our need for an aircraft in Papua New Guinea. And what their response of Quiet Hour was such that actually caused an incident in the administration of our church back home. Jan Gibbs, Russell's wife, records this little note in her diary. Ray Newman brings news of a new plane. Russ and Ray's letter to Elder Aikens and Tucker produced results, but not as they expected. The chaps in the USA just went right out and purchased a plane. And then, for those of you who understand administration of the church, and then rang L. Butler of the Australian Division, the treasurer, and told him to send the insurance money from the FIB crash to make up the cost as soon as possible. Lay and division hopping mad. Lance Butler says next person who writes such a letter will get a one-way ticket home. Russ was a bit upset, but the guys were really glad about the new plane. It's got Robinson Stoll, the works, arriving in November. Yeah, you understand the politics. You don't tell the treasurer what to do, go out and buy it, and then come back and say, now pay for it. Okay, carrying on. So here is for those who, that's Russ on the left and Ray on the right, and that was the aircraft that crashed before Charlie came along. So this is what do you call it? Postnatal nurture of Charlie. You can see things happen pretty fast. The GC approved the purchase on behalf of the South Pacific Division on the 2nd of August. 4th of the August and 5th of the August, J.J. Atkins ferried aircraft to Andrews University. So he got on his horse, got down there to Rex, bought the aircraft within 2 days. No time to change decisions here. 11th of the 8th, J.J. Atkins ferried the aircraft to Renton, Washington to get the Robinson Stoll conversion kit. Now this was the second aircraft that had the Robinson Stoll conversion on it. 25th of the 8th, Wayne Fowler, who many of you would know, was accepted as the ferry pilot to send to New Guinea. And the 7th of the 9th, Wayne goes across to Martin Aviation in Walla Walla to get the long-range tanks fitted. 16th of the 9th, the aircraft was dedicated. Now, that's one of those 4 or 5 aircraft we saw in the quiet hour, one there, and which Laverne was at that dedication. And the 14th and 15th of 11th, Wayne Fowler was supposed to depart the country. He didn't actually get away on time, and unfortunately, and the first pilot to fly at New Guinea, we don't have his logbooks. He went through a divorce, wife burnt them, I think. So we don't know the exact date in December when it arrived in New Guinea, but we do know how it got to be Charlie, because on the 7th of the 1st, the PNG C of A was issued, and the aircraft, which was the N9384 Quebec, which was your original registration, was now Charlie. So we say, hello, Charlie, she's back again. And here I'm going to, once again, I'm going to revert back to that farewell to Charlie letter that Roger wrote, because it's such a neat synopsis of what she achieved in the following 30 years. So I'm reading again from Farewell Charlie. During the last 30 years, Charlie accumulated an impressive service record, over 4 million kilometres over some of the most hospitable terrain in the world, playing a crucial role in the growth and nurture of the Adventist Church in PNG. Now, Roger prefers to have mates, so Charlie has become he. You got that? Okay. He witnessed and participated in the establishment and growth of thousands of churches in remote, inaccessible areas, transportation of thousands of pastors and laymen to plant and nurture those churches, personally delivering the building materials for over 1,000 churches, schools and clinics, carrying hundreds of doctors, nurses and teachers, and seeing many schools and clinics established to serve some of the most isolated and underprivileged people in the world, saving thousands of lives, particularly of mothers and babies, in his service. Only eternity will reveal the full extent and impact of his ministry. You see, Charlie was no ordinary missionary. He was a missionary with wings. Wings that literally carried the three angels through every corner of Papua New Guinea. First registered in PNG in January 1977. Sierra Delta Charlie was a Cessna 206, affectionately called Charlie. You would have figured out one by now from everything you've heard. The first aircraft owned and operated by the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the South Pacific, Charlie was unquestionably contributed more to the growth and development of the church than any other aircraft owned by the denomination anywhere in the world. The church's first mission aircraft, the Andrew Stewart, flew 3,900 hours in New Guinea. By contrast, Charlie flew 15,000 hours. During that time, he trained over 17 young, inexperienced pastor pilots, including myself, that's Roger, and that includes you also, and 15 other pilots to fly safely and professionally in the demanding New Guinea terrain, weather and airstrips. Each of these pilots can recount numerous stories of how God used, blessed and protected the aircraft. Every pilot who flew Sierra Delta Charlie attests that it was the fastest and best performing aircraft of its model that they had operated. We all agree that the Angels not only flew with us, but they were present in the factory where it was manufactured. More than once, Charlie was threatened with destruction by hostile villagers in places that we had to land, if ever they came back and landed again. But as the need for medical supplies, and we came in and helped them extract their sick, Charlie became welcome in his village. He's opening up many villages to the Adventist message and to the gospel who would not otherwise have gained that. The Cessna Aircraft Company never envisaged that any of its engine-driven aircraft would operate more than about 10,000 hours. Thanks to the dedicated mission pilots and engineers who faithfully operated and carefully maintained him, Charlie survived almost uninjured for 30 years of service. I got one of these things. Oh yeah, that's, sorry. I'm not good at remembering to do this. Oh, Charlie's got a broken leg there somewhere, you'll see it later on. Okay, so on December 6th, 2005, Charlie flew for the last time in PNG to his own new deliveries in Queensland. So that's Roger's farewell to Charlie, and it's a very good synopsis of the work that Charlie did. Well, in all deference to Roger, I like ladies, so Charlie's going to become a she again now. I hope Charlie doesn't have an identity crisis being a he-she. Charlie was, when she came, was the, I don't know what's happened there, was the youngest member of three. Her oldest sister was an Aztec, which was purchased for the inter-island and long-distance coastal running. The next sister was another 206 like herself, who worked the Highlands area and the PNG coast, but Charlie always outperformed her older sister. But unfortunately, both of her older sisters deserted her and left her all alone to carry the burden. SDA had a nasty fall, ending up upside down in the sweet potato patch. And after repair, she was sold in 1982. The Aztec P2 SRP, which had replaced had been replaced by the second SDM, another Aztec, had an argument with Treasury, and Treasury sacked her and sent her away. Now, I would be amiss if at this point I didn't give a little infomercial, but Andrea's always given you a big one, but I'll just give a little one. The Quiet Hour not only supplied the means for 5 aircraft for the continuing South Pacific Aviation program, they also ran evangelism in Papua New Guinea. I was the coordinator for Laverne's 1984 program in Goroka, where we had 10,000 people in attendance. One night we had nearly all the town because Laverne called the sermon Blood on the Streets of Goroka. And they all came expecting there'd be a great fight. But they learned it was a different blood. And then my last year of my ministry, I helped to coordinate and run the program that Laverne ran on Pope Oval in Mount Hagen, at which we had 16,000 people there, didn't we, Roger? So I started my ministry in PNG with Quiet Hour. I ended my ministry with Quiet Hour, and for 7 years I flew an aircraft donated by Quiet Hour. So thank you, Quiet Hour. Why is Andrew the only one clapping? Anyway, so now Charlie stands alone, the only aircraft in the field, never flinching from her solo load from 1983 to 1987. I did the maths just before coming over here. She flew an average of 1,051.74 hours per year for 5 years. Now, as you can imagine, that led to a very low hourly rate with those high hours. But because she was the only aircraft, it also diminished our time on the ground for ministry. But the figures disappear because at that time, Papua New Guinea was going through a lay revival and our growth and baptisms were exponential. She was in the middle of the whole foray. So now it's time for some stories because the aircraft is only a tool for the reality of mission. The first one is just a little bit of a light. This is Aaron Jeffries. This gentleman, he was one of the world's gentlemen. The greater guy you couldn't come, Aaron. And this is the story of Aaron and Rogers combined here. Charlie's fight for the right was not without incidents. And Aaron actually wrote this next section. On the morning of 4th of February 1985, Roger Millist and I flew 30 minutes from Kakori to a short strip right on the river bank at Kamayo, which is that little strip on the right there. When we, on returning back to Kakori, when we shut down after the flight, there was smoke coming out of the cows. I thought, what on earth have we got here? I thought we were on fire. We opened up the cows, but there was nothing to see. We knew we had not been seeing things, so we ran the engine again, shut it down again, and up came the smoke again. We got on the mission frequency and talked to the engineer, which was Trilly, on and throughout the day as we investigated the problem. We were thinking we might have a cracked cylinder or similar because there was some oil smears around the place, a bit of a leak. We pulled off the air intake and then the heater muffler, and when I looked inside, I just laughed and laughed and laughed. There were the remains of a massive, big cane toad. Now, how on earth the cane toad got into the engine and then down through into the intake into the muffler, I'll never know. Blimey, we were lucky that it did not start smoking while we were in the air. We would have been in a pickle. That country down there is called karst country. It's limestone. It looks flat on the jungle, but underneath there's just sharp peaks of cornice with water around the bottom. And if you go in there, that's it, your curtains. Okay, but she goes on to say, it was the most embarrassing though, because of all the talk on the radio. Everyone in the mission, because all the mission stations had radio, so when we're talking to the mission on the radio, all the wives are listening and wondering what on earth's happening to their husbands. The next day, I was scheduled to fly a family into a small restricted landing area, RLA. They're the rough little strips. I managed to contact Port Moresby Control, which we seldom could from there, but he did, for my taxi call, when Mission Aviation Fellowship aircraft flew over the top. And they came up on the radio and said, can you tell me your position and where you're going? I mentioned the name, which I can't remember. He said, look, don't go there. That strip should be closed. It's dangerous. Don't go there. That was a providential sign. Had we not had the frog problem, we might have gone, flown in, not knowing the conditions, and who knows what might have happened. The fact that we were delayed one whole day, and the fact that MAF just happened to be flying over the top when I gave my departure call, possibly saved Charlie and our life. I believe he said, that's coming up, that's coming up. I'm saving the best to last. People just can't help themselves, can they? Anyway, we unloaded and Roger and I went to fly back to Groker. While we were flying back, another pilot came up on the air and he said, "Did you enjoy your tea last night?" They had concluded that Seventh-day Adventist vegetarians had decided to start eating frog legs, and those with your French can pronounce that there. And it was the joke of the whole aviation industry. Adventists eat fried frogs. Anyway, moving on. But this is what Erin said at the end of this experience. I have learnt from these times that when things go wrong, never push providence. In other words, if you have a flat tyre or get delayed, why worry? There could be a reason for it. And many of us have experienced that when things have gone wrong, and at the end of the day or the end of the week, you say, wow, if I had continued in that track, I would have been in big doo-doos. I don't know, you've had doo-doos here. Okay. We push something here. Yeah, that's me once upon a time. I want to share this little experience. Angels fly with the aircraft. I have got no doubt about that whatsoever. This incident happened as I was flying back to Goroka after a couple of weeks away. Sometimes we'd leave our homes for my longest tour was 8 weeks away and didn't see home. And I'm flying home and air traffic control came up and said, we have a medical emergency at Amusa. The airstrip was Gimme. And can you divert in it and get it? Unfortunately, I didn't have any passengers on board, so I said, yes, I can do that. Now, these strips, a Gimme was, if you imagine a ridge with a valley down at the bottom and a creek, and then the strip on the opposite ridge. To get into it, you had to get right down onto it. The strip was a sharp entry and the flat in the top, and you had to land down that part there to wash your speed off before you got to there, so you could actually stop before the end of the strip. It's only a 520-metre strip. Now, the department actually required to go into those sort of strips, you had to go in 3 times at 3 different times with a trained pilot, so you didn't break your neck when you got in there, so you understood the procedures. Every strip was a different procedure. But in a medical emergency, you can dispense with all that and kill yourself to save someone. Anyway, I flew downwind over the ridge, trying to keep my, should be 500 feet AGL, but I reckon I was about 400 feet AGL. And turn final, I knew I had a problem with washing my speed off, so I already had power back and full flaps when I turned final. But by the time I got to where I should land, I was still doing 80 knots, not 58 knots because of the descent. See, the problem was, had I been trained, you actually should have come along that ridge at only 100 feet so that you could actually wash your speed off before you got down there. So I'm 30 knots over my landing speed, so pull the power, dump the flaps, and I missed the rise. I land on the top, and as soon as I land, I can't see a thing. The whole windscreen just is awash with water. The grass was long, and it had been raining, and it had 4 inches of water sitting under 6 inches of grass. I hit the brakes, and she aquaplaned. My prayer was very short. I think help was appropriate. And in my head, I said, Lord, I'm not going in those trees. I'm going to ground loop this aircraft if you don't do something. At that moment, the aircraft stopped. My shoulder, we used to have full full double military harness on the aircraft. My shoulders were bruised for 2 weeks afterwards from the force at which that aircraft stopped. When we came to a stop, I got out. I had trouble standing. My knees were like jelly. And I went along the window, the wing leading edge, saying, is there any angel fingerprints along here? And so I know that angels fly with the aircraft. And as an addendum to the whole thing, the sick man. Well, the sick man was walking around in the parking bay wondering what all the excitement was about. He was healthy as all get up. So I was so cranky with put him in the aircraft, flew him to Groker and made him walk home. He'll never do that to me again. Okay. But my question is, how did Charlie stop? There's no natural answer for that. Just for another little bit of fun, skydiving. Who's done any skydiving here? Got a few intrepid ladies, bless your souls, up the back there. Well, our mission aircraft were not used for recreational flight, but we did have one skydiving flight. And this story comes from Sid Griffith, also in Charlie. He says, where possible, we would do our best to serve the community in the remotest parts of PNG, where there are only overgrown walking tracks, mostly steep mountains, and in deep river gorges, forget roads, by assisting local people with their transport, if it fitted into our regular program, was something we like to do. Of alcohol, tobacco, buai, and other items detrimental to the... But we'd bend the rules a little bit at times. We're to assist an elderly gentleman one day from a remote village to carry his meagre belongings from the short strip that I was going into from Menyamia. On arrival for the flight, the old man was carrying a piglet, which was not kosher cargo and not legally actually allowed in the passenger cabin of a six-seater aircraft. So an animated discussion ensued between the two of us. And if anyone knows how to argue, a Highlander knows how to argue. As an act of kindness, I gave in and agreed to transport the animal in the fiberglass pod fitted under the underside of the aircraft, which is where the squealing piglet was unceremoniously dumped. The door was shut with the two sus fasteners. The flight was uneventful, but to the total surprise of us all, when we got to the other end, the door was open and the pig was gone. It's another definition of manna from heaven. You know, you young pilots, if you want excitement, go to mission. You'll never have these experiences here in America. I can just imagine God's job ad. Adventure starts here. And here I actually want to take you to another story which comes from Roger from 2006. And that's in the wrong sequence. So if I go that way, go backwards. Muskie. That can stay there, you can miss the other things. Anyway, going back to Roger in this story, I call this one God's flight plan. And you have to listen carefully to get the sequence of what God does here. On Sunday, that word's important, Sunday, the 19th of February, my son, Lyndon, and I flew from Gogoka versus Kokori again to help transport church members into Kokori for the Southwest Papua Mission session. We had 3 trips to do. 3-hour trips, one to Daru in the south, one to Kerema in the east, and the western areas. Those to be picked up in the western trip, which was a place called Kokori, Kamayo, Kuria. Anyway, you don't need those names, you don't know them. They were uncontactable, but letters had been sent out about 3 weeks before, hoping that people would get the information. Originally, I planned to do the western trip early on the Monday, so that was the next day, and do the other 2 trips on the Sunday. But as we arrived back from the first trip to Daru, the arrived from the eastern trip from Kerama all turned up at the same time that we landed by canoe, which meant that trip wasn't necessary. And so the plan was changed to go and start picking up the people in the west. And over there at Bellimo, over there at Bellimo, we were to pick up some AFM folk. What was his name? David White? Yeah, David White and his family. AFM have done some fantastic work in New Guinea. Now, where have I picked this up? Oh, yes, I'm in the wrong place. So as they landed, David was actually at the strip. And David was quite surprised to see our aircraft there because he thought our aircraft was still out of service, but it actually had just started flying one week before, hadn't it? And he hadn't got the notice that our aircraft was coming for him, and had booked a ticket on Airlines of PNG to go to Kakori, Kerama, where he was going to meet with Goodson, is it? Dale Goodson, to build a church over in that area there. And so he hadn't come to meet AAS, he had come to meet Airlines of PNG. And so Roger was preparing to leave empty when the traffic officer from Airlines PNG came along and said to David that the aircraft was overbooked and he wouldn't be able to fly. Well, fortunately, they were able to get the tickets back and he could take off with Roger. And Roger was halfway back to Kakori before the fight at Bellimo about who was going to go get on the aircraft was finished, because there were lots of other people who had to be offloaded. The loading officer knew at 10 o'clock in the morning, this is 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that it was overloaded, but he wasn't going to tell anyone because he knew there'd be a big fight and he'd be in the middle of it. So God delivered David from that fight. Now, the interesting thing is, had we been earlier, David wouldn't have been there. Had we been later, David wouldn't have been there. But we were there and he was there at just the right moment, so we could pick him up. Back he goes to Kakori. Now, when he gets back to Kakori, the other side of the story is that had the people from Kerama been 30 minutes earlier, Roger wouldn't have known that they arrived. Had they been 30 minutes later, they would have missed him. And so there would have been a whole wasted flight going to Kerama as well. The end result was Roger now had 4 hours, he was 4 hours ahead of schedule. So the next day, where they were going to go to Lae to pick up some officers, he had 4 hours up his sleeve. And it was decided that instead of going straight to Lae, they would go via Goroka to refuel at Goroka. And on his way to Goroka, he remembered that ADRA had a team that was in at Kerama, one of the strips underneath the aircraft route, and they'd been waiting there for a week before to get out. So he thought, I'll just divert into Karamui to see whether they've gone out or not. And so he diverts into Karamui, and sure enough, the ADRA, they've been there teaching awareness, I think. Sure enough, they hadn't got out. They've been sitting at the street for a week. Welcome to mission. And so he came in, they were there, and then another gentleman came up and said, how many seats have you got available in the aircraft? And Roger told him there was 3 seats, I think, at that stage. And he said there's a lady who is very sick. And it turned out this lady had failed to deliver. Her baby had died in utero 3 weeks before, and everything had gone septic inside. And she's extremely white for a lady from that part of the world. And this gentleman said that they've already paid tickets. Could we fit them on? And Roger said, yes, we can. And it turned out he was the wife of one of our regular customers who used to charter our aircraft. And he was able to fly her out. 30 minutes later, she was in hospital. The next day, Roger flew the baby back for the burial, and a week later, she came to Hangar to thank him as full of life. Now, lots of things have happened there if you've been listening to the sequence. The questions are, what made, Roger's asking these questions, what made me decide to divert to Kerema in the first place that morning? The weather normally is foggy and not good, but it was clear that morning. Our plane, what led to the plane being not having to do the flights the day before, so I had the 4 hours to do this extra flight. And how come the ADRA people hadn't been picked up, and so I went to pick them up. So it took off, not knowing there was a problem, hoping to solve a problem, which was there, and discovered that the problem was a lady who was in need of immediate medical work. God's flight plan. That's why it is. Again, God knows and directs our program, our coming in and our going out. God knows and cares for each one of his children, and he uses his aircraft to save their lives. We're just going along for the ride, and we're loving every minute of it. You're looking over my shoulder. For the rest of the history, you'll have to buy my book when it comes out in a year and a half's time. No, I've got to share the last paragraph. I've got to share the last paragraph. That's page 8. That's page 9. And that's page 10. And now we get over to where I start. No. One of the other CEOs, Trevor Robinson, who greets you all, he sent me an email, and I want to use this little paragraph as my closing comment. I am really pleased that this beautiful old bird that was my office for so long and saved so many lives in the cause of Christ is still able to serve in another generation of missionary pilots. My prayer is that the spirit of mission that has motivated its use over the years goes with it and infects the budding mission pilots there at PUC with a vision of Vision Aviation. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Colin. I feel terrible. He's flown all the way across from Australia to share his talk, and I've cut him off. I feel bad about that.
It's costing him 3 meals a day.
But I do want to thank Roger over here and Colin over here for travelling. Ron lives in Perth, Australia, which is on the other end of a big continent, halfway around the world. And many of others of you have flown across this country. We have not had a chance to give fair content to other pilots. We've got Don Christensen in the back. He was the last mission pilot we had for the Philippines before the church handed over to private operators. We also have Angel 1 over here, Mr. Judd, Ryan Booth. He's currently leasing us an aeroplane, so I'm probably in trouble now. And he would really like to give us 2 or 3 minutes of his time. I think what I'm going to do is, how would you feel if I offer a closing prayer? If you can spare 2 or 3 minutes, let's have Ryan talk a bit about what's currently happening in the independent ministry supporting our church. And the back here, Gina Wallin, who comes from the General Conference Office of Global Mission. It'd be good to pay some respects to her too, because without the General Conference vision, we would not have had all of these stories since before the 60s. So I'm going to offer a closing word of prayer, and I'm going to give the mic to Mr. Booth, and I'm going to encourage you to see Gina while stocks last. We still have a phone here that's missing. I think the battery is discharged. We'll pop it on the charger and figure out who it belongs to, but there is a missing phone here as well. Thank you, everybody. There's more stories to come, and then there's some glasses as well. We've got a glasses case with no glasses as well. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, there is an Air Expo. 12:30 is a dedication. Charlie, all those stories you heard today, That will be the howl of the engine tomorrow. The loudest plane on the field will be Charlie, Lord willing. Let's close with prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the men, the women, the families that are represented here. Thank you for those that have been so unselfish with their lives over weeks, months, years, decades, a lifetime. Thank you for those who have unselfishly laid to rest loved ones that we look forward to being reunited with one day. And I pray too for us young folk who are looking for a future, looking for hope ourselves, looking for a purpose for our lives. May it become clear. I pray that you would baptize our hearts in this campus tonight with your glory. Help us to be sensitive to the needs of those around us. And as we make our path forward, may it be in your hands, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm going to hand the microphone to Mr. Booth, if you can manage about 2 or 3 minutes.
Good evening, afternoon. Found that way yet.
Good.
I'm just going to speak very briefly. We've had a lot of conversation today and some amazing stories about the history of Adventist Mission Aviation. I just wanted to give you a very, very brief summary of what's kind of happening currently in Adventist Mission Aviation. As most of you know, unfortunately and regretfully, the General Conference moved out of that sector primarily in the 90s. And there, I believe it's Papua New Guinea and Indonesia, are only 2 remaining denominational run aviation projects in the Adventist Mission world. Currently, the majority of Adventist Mission Aviation projects are supporting ministries. They're not run by the denomination, and Angel One supports those ministries. That's what we're here for. These, as you can see on screen, we have projects around the world that we're connected with and supporting. There's a lot of needs of a small aviation project in the field, and we try to meet those needs with stateside support, etc. Our primary objective is to provide a supporting network for small projects in the field, charitable pathway, access to aircraft. We have multiple aircraft around the world. These are Angel One aircraft that we lease to the project at no cost. The 182 up there you see is just received its flight permissions in Peru about 3 weeks ago and is currently in operation there. The float plane right now will be flying from South Africa to Zambia next week. It was assembled in South Africa out of a container last month and it's got permissions and now flying to Zambia. Will be utilized in partnership with Child Impact and Riverside Farms to access remote river delta system and support schools and medical work there. The helicopter here, R-66, has been in operation in the Philippines for about a year. These are all Angel One owned aircraft that are leased at no cost to the project as partner operations. The helicopter is the current only active one in Adventist Mission Aviation. That is our goal, is to support mission aviation, Adventist Mission Aviation around the world. We do the best we can and on a limited budget along with everybody else in that sector. If you really want to get to know the current mission pilots in those projects, come to Oklahoma in July. Elevate is Adventist Mission Aviation fly-in at Oklahoma Academy in July. And we have a large number of the current mission aviation pilots in the field usually make it to that event if they're able to. As long with, we provide trainings and other mission aviation focused activities. Usually have MSI come in and do some presentations, etc. That's about it for Angel One. This is a very, very brief synopsis of what's going on currently in Adventist Mission Aviation. It has been a distinct honor to be here this afternoon, and we're continuing to try to stand on the shoulders of the giants that have gone before and carry on that legacy in Adventist Mission Aviation. Thank you.
Thank you, Earl. If you want to receive a newsletter, you have a quarterly newsletter will be published. You have your email address or a postal address that you can electronic or faxing depending on your preference. Feel free to mingle. The heritage stickers are required.
You can kill it when you get a chance.
I'll share mine again.
I'm gonna go bother quiet hour. I'm gonna go bother quiet hour and tell them if Want to get back in the aviation sending business, come talk to us. I'll leave this in there for now.
I see Bolivia. Is David not part of Angel One, or is he a different
No, thank you.
organization?